My name is Vanessa Hartwell. I'm 41 years old. Logic has always been my survival mechanism. As a systems architect, I spend my days solving problems by reducing chaos into manageable pieces, define the variables, identify the risks, build a solution. For most of my life, that approach worked. Then Ethan's email arrived. Monday afternoon. No warning. No conversation. No argument beforehand. Just an email. The subject line was his name. The body felt even colder. Vanessa. I am writing to inform you that I will be ending our relationship. I have already moved my essential belongings and will arrange a time to collect the remainder. I believe this is for the best. Please respect my privacy during this difficult time. All further communication should be in writing. Ethan. 12 years. Reduced to 6 short paragraphs. I stared at the screen for a long time. Only 2 days earlier we had spent the entire weekend planting flowers in the backyard. We had reservations for his birthday dinner the following week. Nothing felt wrong. At least, nothing obvious. A sharp pain pushed against my ribs. I wanted answers. I wanted to call him. I wanted to drive across the city and demand an explanation. Instead, he sat still. Panic solves nothing. He had established the new rules: privacy, distance, written communication only. Fine. I typed a simple response. Of course. Then I started protecting myself. Not because I was angry, because uncertainty is risk. First, I forwarded the email to our relationship mediator, Dr. Albright. We had spent months trying to improve communication. Apparently, Ethan had decided communication was finished. I added a brief note. Dr. Albright. For your records, it appears our sessions have concluded. Best. Vanessa. A timestamp. A record. Evidence. Then I logged into our bank account. Years earlier, we had opened a large home equity line of credit for renovations. We barely used it anymore, but it remained active. $50,000. Accessible by both of us. Or rather, accessible by someone who had just walked away without warning. I initiated the closure request. Another risk removed. The hardest step came last. I opened my company's HR portal. Emergency contact. Ethan Carter. His phone number, his name. For 12 years. He had been the person someone would call if I was unconscious in a hospital. The person who would make decisions if something happened to me. The person I trusted most. My hand hesitated. Then, I deleted his information. 3 clicks. 12 years erased from a database. I replaced him with my older sister. The system updated instantly. The emotional impact took longer. That evening, I returned home. The house felt wrong. Not empty. Wrong. His side of the closet was half vacant. The bathroom shelves looked strangely spacious. Several framed photographs were missing. I noticed details only because they no longer existed. Silence filled every room. I barely slept. The next 2 days passed in a blur of work and numbness. Then my desk phone rang. Vanessa, hi. It's Julia, from Human Resources. Her voice sounded hesitant. Of course, I said. What's going on? We had a situation involving Ethan today. I sat up straighter. What kind of situation? He was attending a consulting meeting upstairs. Apparently, he slipped in the lobby and injured his ankle. My stomach tightened. Despite everything, concern appeared instantly. Is he okay? Yes. Nothing serious. But protocol required us to contact someone. I waited. Julia continued. His department couldn't locate an emergency contact? We checked related personnel files and saw he was previously connected to yours. However, you weren't listed as his emergency contact anymore. And he wasn't listed as yours. I remained silent, so we contacted his parents. There it was. The pause. The reason for the call. Julia Sahil. They seemed very surprised. Surprised. Apparently, they didn't know anything about the breakup. A strange feeling settled over me. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Just realization. Julia continued carefully. His mother became extremely upset. She insisted on speaking directly to him. The paramedics were still present. Several people overheard the conversation. I closed my eyes. The privacy Ethan demanded was beginning to crack. He had to explain everything on speakerphone. Julia added, "It became awkward." Awkward. That was one word for it. Ethan had wanted complete control, a clean exit, a private narrative. But reality doesn't always cooperate with carefully crafted plans. Workplace procedures, emergency protocols, concerned parents. None of those things cared about his preferences. "I understand," I said calmly. "Thank you for letting me know." After hanging up, I sat alone in my office. Something felt off. Not the accident. Not the phone call. Something deeper. The email had been too polished, too prepared, too final, almost like a document written long before it was sent. A thought drifted into my mind. Then another, and another. Questions I couldn't answer. Yet, but for the first time, since receiving that email, I felt certain of one thing. The next message from Ethan wasn't going to be polite. And whatever secret he was protecting behind all that talk of privacy, it was already starting to surface. The next message from Ethan arrived less than an hour after HR called me. Not an email. A text. So much for written communication on his terms. They called my mother. My 68-year-old mother. "Vanessa, what is wrong with you? You took me off as your emergency contact after 12 years. That is the coldest, cruelest thing I have ever heard." Then came another. "And the credit line is frozen. I was going to use that for the deposit on my new apartment. You have left me stranded." I read the messages twice. Then I took screenshots. I did not reply. Instead, I forwarded them to Dr. Albright with the subject line, "Further correspondence. Ethan had ended our life together without warning. Demanded privacy." And then became furious when privacy came with consequences. The real confrontation came Saturday morning. I was drinking coffee when the doorbell camera chimed. Ethan stood on the porch with a medical boot on his foot and anger all over his face. Beside him was his older sister, Brianna. I did not open the door. I pressed the intercom. "Ethan, you said you would arrange a time. Don't be childish." "Vanessa," he snapped. "Let us in." "Your email said arrangements would be made in writing." Brianna leaned toward the camera. "Stop playing games. He needs his things. He can email me a proposed date and time." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm injured because of this stress." "No," I said quietly. "You injured your ankle in a lobby." He stared at the camera as if he hated how calm I sounded. "Send an email," I said. Then I ended the call. They knocked for 7 more minutes. I counted. An hour later, the email came. It was not a request. It was a list. At first, normal things. Clothes, shoes, toiletries. Then the list changed. The antique city maps from the study. The walnut bookcase my grandfather built. The limited edition turntable we bought together. A framed charcoal sketch from our first apartment. These were not Ethan's personal belongings. They were shared assets. Valuable ones. Sentimental ones. This was not a pickup. It was a raid. I replied with the same controlled tone he seemed to despise. "Ethan, I am available next Saturday, between 1:00 a.m. and 2:00 p.m. for you to collect personal belongings only. Clothing, toiletries, documents, and individual items. Shared assets, including artwork, furniture, electronics, and household property, will remain in the home until formal division through mediation or legal process. A third-party observer will be present." Vanessa. His response was immediate. "A third party? Unbelievable. You are making this as ugly as possible." "No," I thought. "You made it ugly." I was just turning on the lights. The following Saturday, I prepared the house like a crime scene. Not emotionally, practically. I boxed his clothes, labeled his documents, placed his personal electronics in a separate container, Everything sat neatly in the foyer. My third-party observer was my friend Allison. An accountant, with the emotional range of a sealed envelope and the honesty of a courtroom clock. She arrived at 9:30 with a notebook and black coffee. At 10:05. A moving van pulled up. Not a car, not a borrowed truck, a full moving van. Ethan stepped out first, then Brianna. Then, the driver's side door opened, and a woman climbed down. Olivia Marsh, Ethan's ex-girlfriend. I knew her immediately. I had met her once years ago at a holiday party. She had smiled too long, touched Ethan's sleeve too often, called him E, like I was supposed to understand the history behind it. Now, she stood in my driveway, wearing sunglasses, in confidence. That was the secret. That was the privacy. I opened the door before they could knock. Ethan. Brianna. My eyes moved to Olivia. Her smile was small and sharp. I'm here to help Ethan move his things. His personal things. I corrected. Ethan looked past me into the house. Where are the maps? In the study. Where they will stay. His expression hardened. Those were a gift. To both of us. I chose them. My parents paid for them. The card has both our names. Olivia stepped forward. Vanessa. This doesn't have to be hostile. I looked at her calmly. Then don't make it hostile. Allison sat in the living room with her notebook open. She gave a polite nod. Ethan's face changed when he saw her. This was not the uncontrolled free-for-all he expected. Brianna began inspecting the room. What about the bookcase? My grandfather built it. Ethan used it. Then he has excellent taste. It stays. Olivia gave a quiet laugh. You're really going to fight over furniture? No. I said. I'm going to document property. Her smile faded. The movers loaded only the boxes from the foyer. Every time Ethan tried to step deeper into the house, I redirected him. Every time Olivia tried to soften her voice, I answered with facts. Then Ethan saw the sculpture. The Wanderer, driftwood and recycled glass. We found it in a tiny coastal gallery during our first trip together. He had carried it back to the hotel wrapped in newspaper. He once said it looked like something that had survived storms and still found light. Now he pointed at it. I'm taking that. No. His eyes flashed. It's mine. It's ours. It's just wood and glass. Vanessa. No. I said. It isn't. The room went still. For 1 second. I saw something in his face. Not grief. Not memory. Resentment. He reached for the sculpture. Ethan. I warned. He smiled. Then he shoved it off the mantel. The crash was sharp and final. Glass scattered across the stone hearth. Brianna gasped. Olivia froze. Allison stopped writing. Ethan stood there breathing hard. Satisfaction twisting his face. There, he said. Now neither of us has it. I looked at the broken pieces, then at him. The pain did not come hot. It came cold, clear, steady. I took out my phone, opened the security camera app, and saved the last 5 minutes of living room footage. Ethan watched my thumb move across the screen. His face changed. He had forgotten the cameras. Or maybe he had forgotten that consequences existed when I was no longer trying to protect him from himself. Get your boxes, I said. My voice sounded unfamiliar. And leave my house. They moved quickly after that. No arguments, no speeches. Just panic, hidden under silence. At the door, Brianna turned back. I hope you're proud of yourself. You destroyed him. I looked at the shattered sculpture on the floor. No, I said. He just showed me who he is. Ethan did not look back, but Olivia did. And in her eyes, I saw the first flicker of fear. 8 months later, everything was over. The legal paperwork was signed. The property division was finalized. The relationship that had consumed 12 years of my life officially existed only as a collection of court documents and archived emails. People often imagine the end of a long conflict feels dramatic. It doesn't. It feels quiet, like standing in a field after a wildfire and realizing the smoke is finally gone. The turning point had been the sculpture, not because of its monetary value. It wasn't worth much, But the video was priceless. During our first formal settlement meeting, my attorney played the footage. The room fell silent. Ethan's lawyer watched the screen, then watched it again. The recording showed everything: his demands, his behavior, the destruction, the witnesses, the complete absence of provocation. The story Ethan had been telling everyone, that I was controlling, vindictive, and obsessed with punishment, collapsed in less than 5 minutes. Because cameras don't argue, they don't exaggerate, they don't rewrite history. They simply remember. His attorney's expression changed almost immediately. I recognized the look. It was the expression professionals wear when they realize their client has become their biggest problem. The consequences started slowly, then accelerated. The court viewed the incident as evidence of bad faith during the separation process. That phrase appeared repeatedly in legal filings. Bad faith. 2 words that followed Ethan everywhere afterward. The division of assets shifted dramatically. He wanted the house sold. He expected a long battle. Instead, my attorney used the footage, financial records, and documented communications to demonstrate a clear pattern of destructive behavior. Eventually, I bought out his share for significantly less than market value. The antique maps stayed. The turntables stayed. My grandfather's bookcase stayed. The house stayed. Ethan received property that could be clearly established as his before our relationship. Nothing more. But the biggest surprise came later, during financial discovery. One afternoon my attorney called me. "You're going to want to see this." His voice sounded almost amused. A few hours later, I sat in his office reviewing documents, business registrations, emails, domain purchases, corporate filings, names, dates, timelines, and suddenly, everything made sense. 3 months before Ethan sent me the separation email, he and Olivia had already started planning a business together. A consulting agency, marketing and branding, their own company, their own future, their own escape plan. My stomach tightened as I followed the timeline. The domain registration, the preliminary business filings, the projected operating budget. Everything had been carefully organized, including the funding source, the $50,000 credit line, the one I closed the same afternoon he left. I sat back in my chair for several seconds. I couldn't speak. The breakup hadn't been spontaneous. It hadn't been emotional. It had been strategic, planned, calculated. Months of preparation hidden behind ordinary dinners, vacations, and conversations. The garden we planted together, the birthday reservations, the weekend routines. He already knew he was leaving during all of it. He just hadn't told me. My attorney slid another document toward me. Projected startup capital. Contribution expected from Ethan Carter. $50,000. Exactly the amount available through our shared credit line. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because suddenly, every argument made sense. The furious texts, the panic, the accusations. He hadn't been upset about the principal. He had been upset about losing access to money. The foundation of their entire plan disappeared the moment I closed that account. And once legal fees started accumulating, things became worse. Much worse. The business never launched. The funding evaporated. The projections became fantasies. The future Ethan and Olivia had carefully designed collapsed before it even existed. Their professional lives suffered too. Not dramatically. No one was fired. No public scandals erupted. Real life is usually quieter than that. But reputations matter. People talk. Especially in professional circles. The story of the accident reached coworkers. The story of the moving day disaster reached mutual acquaintances. The story of the destroyed sculpture reached industry contacts. Small conversations spread. Questions followed. Concerns emerged. Eventually, the perception formed: messy, unpredictable, unprofessional. I later heard through a former colleague that Olivia lost an important client after concerns arose about her judgment. Another contact mentioned Ethan being passed over for a major leadership opportunity. Officially, the reasons were never disclosed. Unofficially, people remembered. People always remember. The final legal blow arrived near the end of proceedings. Ethan requested substantial long-term financial support. His attorney argued that he needed assistance while rebuilding his career and establishing stability. My attorney responded with documentation, not opinions, not accusation, documentation, the business registrations, the dates, the planning records, the evidence showing Ethan and Olivia had begun preparing their future. Months before the separation email, the judge reviewed everything, then issued the ruling. Minimal temporary support, barely enough to matter. The request for long-term financial assistance was effectively denied. A complete defeat. I never received an apology. Not once. No acknowledgement. No accountability. No moment of reflection. According to mutual acquaintances, Ethan still tells people I drove him away, that I became controlling, that I couldn't handle change, that I created conflict where none existed. I've stopped caring. Narratives are easy. Evidence is harder, and evidence was on my side. The last thing I heard was that Ethan and Olivia were still together, living in a small rented apartment, trying to rebuild plans that never became reality. Maybe they're happy. Maybe they aren't. That chapter no longer belongs to me. The house is quiet now, peacefully quiet. Not the hollow silence that followed his departure. A different kind of quiet. One built on certainty. A few weeks ago, I climbed into the attic. In the corner sat a small storage box. Inside were the broken pieces of the Wanderer, the driftwood, the shattered glass, fragments of something beautiful. I picked up one of the pieces and held it in my hand. For a moment, I remembered who we used to be. Not who Ethan became. Not who I became during the conflict. The people we once were. Then I put the piece back into the box, closed the lid, and walked downstairs. Some things cannot be repaired. Some things should not be repaired. The strange truth is that losing Ethan wasn't what hurt most. The hardest part was discovering that the person I loved had been gone long before he left. But now the legal battles are finished. The paperwork is complete. The house is mine. The future is mine. And for the first time in a very long time, the system is stable.